Hi, friends. Hollywood Progressive here again with you with a wonderful play to discuss. I'm Dick and Sharon and Linnea. The play we saw last night was probably one of the best plays we've ever seen, called Blood at the Root. It was the West Coast premiere of what's called a choreo poem by Dominique Marisu, directed by Michael A. Shepard with an ensemble cast of 11. It's by the Open Fist Theater Company at Atwater Theater Village Theater, which is near to us, and it plays from now until October 28th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's based on a real life incident at a Louisville high school, which came to be known as the Jena 6. The incident did. It starts with a young African-American student, Raylan, breaks tradition by grabbing some shade under a historic tree that's typically reserved for white students. The next day, 3 nooses are discovered hanging from that tree, and the story goes from there. Where does it go, Sharon?
Wow. So I started writing notes in preparation for this interview, for this little video that we always do after we've seen a play. And one of the notes I began to write says, this play takes a bold, in your face stand against white supremacy. And watching the actors bring her words to life, I scratched out watching the actors and I replaced it with the word experiencing the actors bring Dominique Morisseau's words to life. But they do more than bring her words to life. It's like they take her words and they wrap them around the audience. I felt like I was inside of the play when the young actress, I believe her name was Nichelle Hawk, she started off the performance. First of all, it was riveting from the moment it started until it ended. And when it ended, I knew it was over, but I didn't want it to be over. I wanted more. It was by far, hands down, no comparison, one of the best plays that I have seen in my life. Afterwards, I did what I never do. I never do this. I went and looked up Dominique Morisseau to find out who penned these words. I wanted to know, what has she written in the past? I've got to find out more about her. Turns out she is a Tony Award nominated playwright, a young Black woman. And I say young sort of in quotes because she is in her 40s and I'm in my 60s. So for me, that's young. She received a MacArthur Genius Award. She's written a half a dozen other plays, and I want to see everything that she's ever written. The director, Michael A. Shepard, unbelievable what he did in his direction of these wonderfully talented actors, including Nichelle Hawk. I just want to say a little bit about the name of the play. The name of the play, which is Blood on the Leaves. When I heard the name of the play, Blood on the Leaves, it was like ringing bell, blood on the leaves, blood on the leaves, and blood at the root, blood at the root, which is a line from the song that Billie Holliday is most known for, Strange Fruit, which is a story of a lynching. It's a poem about lynching written by Abel Morapule, and Abel Morapule was a young Jewish man who saw a photograph of a lynching. So we're bringing the nooses into this and the connection. There's so many connections. Abel Maripol, born in the Bronx in 1903, wrote poem Strange Fruit. First thing he had ever written. He became a poet, but at the time that he wrote it, he was a high school English teacher. And he shared the poem. The poem was published in he was a unionized teacher in New York City. He taught at DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx. And that poem was shared with Billie Holiday. And I believe Billie Holiday wrote the music. So Abel Meeropol wrote the words, Billie Holiday wrote the music, and that song actually led to her death. If you study more about what happened to Billie Holiday and how she was determined, she was going to sing that song. She didn't care what the FBI or the government said, and the government came against him for writing that song. It seems that they were more upset with the writing of the song than they were about lynching, because as we know, anti-lynching legislation was never passed during those days. So I'm not going to dominate this conversation. I think that I've said enough for now. When it comes back around to me, I'll have a lot more to say. But I want to hear, Nia, if you want to jump in, because you were a teenager at the time of the Genesis, and just tell me your experiences of this.
Yeah, this was as both my dad and Sharon said, hands down the best performance I've personally ever seen myself. I felt like I was watching high school kids, and none of these actors were probably under the age of 20. The story itself, I didn't immediately remember it. We sort of I feel like we always go to our plays pretty cold, and so we're always talking in the audience, what show is this? what is this about? And I Googled it real quick, and I said, oh, it's about the Genesis 6. And Sharon immediately was like, oh, yes, okay, no more information needed. And so she started telling me about it, and I do vaguely remember it in hindsight now. And I remember a story of, these nooses being dropped at this school and all sorts of uproar. I didn't know the full story and what happened after with one or several of the Black students that were involved in an altercation, culminating from, or at least loosely tied to, these nooses being hung on this tree. This play hit home in a number of ways. It did a great job of absolutely pointing out racism, but from multiple different aspects, and how racism affects different people. So you had the story of the young Black woman who was the main character, Ray. You had the story of the young Black man, her brother, DeAndre. You also had the story of the mixed, the biracial child, which resonated with me absolutely 100%, and never really feeling fully accepted on either side, and how that, how you can go through life sort of saying, well, I'm just not going to get involved then if no one wants to claim me. And then you also have,
I always wanted to claim you.
My peers, Dad. But then what I really, really appreciated, and I don't think is talked about enough, was there was a young white girl, but who had been raised absolutely within the Black community and was accepted by the Black community, and how she had the choice of taking off that Black association because she still had white skin. Ultimately, I think the playwright insinuates, and I think they sort of say that she does end up, because she hesitated a little bit when the nooses were first placed, and there was a line where she said, maybe it's not racist, maybe it's not racism.
Yeah.
And which is a sentiment I've heard across the white demographic, who some of them consider themselves allies, I believe, and but they just, they aren't going through life facing racism every day that people like myself and Sharon might. And so they, some of these things that our community immediately recognizes as racism, they don't necessarily see it. But even the way she was presented, and her little arc within the play, was just beautiful. The story really was painful in the best way possible, frustrating in the best way possible. I started tearing up halfway through it, at a point when a higher up, I think the vice principal, was saying, I could take your life with the flick of my wrist. I really hope a lot of people go and see this and feel the unfairness, the injustice, the ease with which the white community that continues racism the ease with which they view people of color as less than nothing and something that they can just do away with if they want to. I also could keep talking.
Yeah, so to me, it was a superb play, probably the best we've seen. We all thought that. I mean, and we were fortunate to make the premiere, so we got to meet some of the director and one of the actresses, and it was just delightful. So you might think from the way we're saying it's kind of a polemic about racism. It's because this was a horrible racist act. And certainly it addresses racism and homophobia and colorism, and the white reporter who reports to the multiracial editor. I related to her as a kid because she feels like she doesn't belong anywhere, that she's invisible, and she needs to capture this story and tell this truth because that's the way she makes herself in the world. It was totally relatable. I mean, we'd all been to high school. Me, somewhere back in the last century, I was in high school, but it seems like these young actors who weren't high school students, a little older than that, they really captured it. And the interplay, it wasn't like they went from one issue to the next. The play really tells the truth about the individual characters. You come to understand why the biracial editor is the way he is. And I was particularly tuned into that because of Linnea. And I've always, wondered how the world is for a mulatto, and the key part of the play is it revolves around homophobia as well, which you kind of don't think about when you think the Jenna 6. Well, it's about these nooses and the fight. But then you find out that the fight that's at the core of it has a lot to do with homophobia. It is the acting is superb. So we recently went to a couple plays where the characters break out of the action of the play and talk directly to the audience. And sometimes we think that kind of interrupts and disrupts from the flow of what's going on. Here it's beautifully done. It totally makes sense. All the main characters have a point where they come forth and state their case for who they are and how they are and why they feel they are. We've talked about, we're going to try to interest everybody in the world to go see it. Sharon, you mentioned having additional thoughts.
Yeah, so I thought that this time we should mention all of the cast. Malik Bailey, Deandra Bernardo, Emma Bruno, Nichelle Hawk, Nicholas Hurd, Jeremy Ryder II, Caroline Rose, Jack David Sharp, Grace Soames, Amber Tierra, and Azim Vecchio. Also, the scenic designer, Joel David. Ooh, man, I mean, this is, he takes a small stage. Maybe the stage is 700 square feet. I'm not good at that. But basically, he takes a very small stage, and I think it's one of these 99-seat theaters, and transforms it. And with the very clever usage of a few chairs, a desk, and a magnificently constructed and designed tree, the tree from which the nooses are held, he just transforms it back to this place in Louisiana. I think you said St. Louis, honey. It's Louisiana. The sound designer, Mark Anthony Pritchett, the costume designer, Milet Nora, the lighting designer, Gavin Wyrick, and the choreographer, Yusuf Nasir. Oh, wow, what a fantastic job. The assistant director, Deborah Reithart, production stage manager, Don Dimitri, the co-artistic directors, Martha Dempson, James Fowler, and Amanda Weir. This is a must-see. That's where I'll stop.
I would say so. You think a play about Jenna 6. Well, it'll be plotting and it'll be fact-filled, and you'll come away with a certain opinion about the world. Not so. We could have sat there for if it had been a 2-act play, we'd still be there now. It was we were so, the acting and the writing and the stage play was so compelling that you identified with one character after another, if not in your own skin, like in my case with Nia, seeing the black and white editor. But also, I mean, I've known gay people that struggled with that all through and through, just utterly delightful performance.
I was brought to the edge of my seat starting 2 minutes into the play, and when the final scene hits, I was like, wait. It was like I finally exhaled, and I was waiting for more, and Sharon and I both shot up at the end. This is absolutely a must see. Absolutely a must.
A well-deserved and they received a well-deserved standing ovation from everybody in the theater. And then afterwards, because it was premiere night, they had a reception afterwards. The reception, I think, went on for I think we left 45 minutes after the reception, and there was still a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would have shot up too, except I got these 75-year-old knees. I get up. I was delighted.
No excuses.
It was quite the thing. So Nia and I are.
You want to tell people where they can see it and for how long is it playing?
I did. If everybody was listening, I would have said it plays at the Atwater Village Theater now through October 28th on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. It's a must-see. I can't believe it won't be extended. I do hope people will rush and see it. This is ripped out of the headlines and couldn't be more appropriate for these times of the anti-woke racial hatred that's grown up in this country, anti-gay, anti-LGBT times. This is right on time. So Nia and I are going to go see another play in an hour, and Sharon's going to go to a birthday party of this younger guy she knows. And,
one of the LA progressive writers, honey.
Yes, I know. That's what
she said.
That's what she keeps telling me. And I believe. Anyway, we'll talk about that one later on this week. Thank you, everybody.
All right.